Concentration on today is we're going to do a lot of rows. So I'm going to do essentially high pull down, just kind of warm up the lats. And then we're going to do a few variations on seated row. We're going to do one arm rows. We're going to do low plate related rows. Really work on like thickness today. We'll get started with mid grip, pull down. So the big thing is come up, get yourself set up, that chest up engaged, drop those shoulders down away from the ears, and you're driving elbows down. Come up until you feel that stretch. And don't get in that whole swing predicament where you're going way too heavy and let yourself kind of do this. Because basically what you're doing is you're taking yourself out of a pull down and putting yourself into a seated row. Because this is a row. This is a pull down. So keep yourself in this upright position. So the big thing here with when you're thinking elbows is when you're here, your hands are just hooks. You're just hooking on to the apparatus of whatever you're pulling. So think elbows and you're driving them down towards your hips. And then you can actually start thinking, there is verbiage, it's called a scapular J. So what I mean by a scapular J is when you're pulling down, your elbow comes down and just kind of flares out a little bit. So it's kind of going in that J motion. So if you watch my elbow, it comes like this. So you're coming down and then out. Coming down and then out. And that gives you that extra little bit of squeeze. Now I'll demonstrate it with this one. So you're getting yourself in, get that full stretch, coming down, and you get that little squeeze at the end. Elbows go in, down, out, in. It is a slight movement at the end, but it gives you that extra little bit of flexion and stuff like that at the very end of the movement. So it's very good if you're having trouble getting that mind to muscle connection on the bottom of the rep and you're just coming down and you're just flinging it. Lower the weight, concentrate on coming to bring it down, and that little flare gives you that extra little flex. And it starts creating that mind to muscle connection. I would say 2 feeder sets, 2 lightweight, and then gradually build yourself up and do 4 working sets. So 6 sets in total, but 2 of them are just warm up, so they don't really count anyway. So 4 working, 2 feeders, and you're gonna move on to the next exercise. All right, everybody, so we're going on to exercise number 2. We're gonna do a seated row, but we're gonna do an underhand grip. So this is another Prime Fitness, basically handle here. So it's more accentuating a narrow grip, but it's more in that underhand grip kind of position. If you don't have something like this, you could use 2 singular handles and just kind of get in that underhand variation. But it's something that you should do when you go into back movements is change your hand position. A lot of people do the overhand or the neutral, but they don't really start doing the underhand grips. So you should always thinking about change your grips on at least a few movements in your back day. It just adds to more angles, more like muscle incorporation and muscle recruitment and stuff like that. So, all right, so. Get nice and tall, lean in for the stretch. And again, when you come back, don't go like full lean like most people do. So you're thinking elbow drive and chest up. That's all you're thinking. So basically your back really doesn't go anywhere from here. So chest up. So something like this, as you can see, you're gonna be really concentrating on that stretch. So I like to hold that stretch for a couple seconds. And when I come up, really kind of emphasize that squeeze, nice and slow on the way down. So I'm not like just letting it fall. I'm slow on the way down. Get into that stretch, hold that stretch for a second or two. Pop chest up, elbows go back. Nice and slow down. Really, this is just, you got a little blood into the muscle with the pull downs. Now you're doing this to kind of really start stretching with that muscle. Get more blood into the muscle, get more recruitment of the muscles as we're getting ready to get into that heavy row day. So something like this, you're gonna do 4 sets, roughly around 12 to 15. Start incorporating heavier as you get into it, because you really want to start getting warmed up, because we're going to start doing some heavy rows as we go into the end of the day. So big thing is getting yourself warmed up, getting yourself ready for those, for those exercises coming up. If you're doing something like this, the narrow grip, what it does, it makes you drive your elbows in an outward position. So it really helps with keeping your elbows in nice and tight, but it makes you drive outward. So if you look at your back, if you think of your back, when you drive elbows outward and keep them in, it really works on that, like the thickness or the width of the back. But when your hands are out here, say wider than your shoulder, all you're doing is coming straight back. So really what you're working on is like thickness or detail in the middle of the back. So you're not really working on width, because this is the one that's really going to get that stretch. So when you come out, you're really stretching it. You're going to feel that stretch. Everything's out, and then you're driving everything in, and you really kind of concentrate on that elbow drive right past the body. But as I said, if you're out here, it's just straight back. There's no real elbow traveling in or out. You can try to keep your elbows in, but even so, it's a straight back movement. It's not like out in front of you, kind of this way. It's just straight back. So if that kind of makes it a little bit more simple for you, if you're working on like width or how wide your back is, you would more so be doing like a narrow grip. So if you're gonna do a wide one, you're gonna be working on detail or thickness. So basically thickness from the side, not width or wide back. So narrow grip equals wider back. Wide grip equals like thick back, so dense muscle. So, all right, so we're moving on to exercise number 3. Obviously, I'm using a lot lighter weights than I would usually use if I was actually doing it today, but I'm demonstrating. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a double dumbbell row off an incline bench. So you're gonna basically lean yourself against the bench, let yourself, everything kind of dangle over, get that full rounded back, and you're driving everything back. So, there we go. So you let yourself everything round, and you basically, it's almost like, think one arm rows, but it's 2 of them at the same time. So, and you're pushing that chest through the bench. So, what I mean by that is, a lot of people, when they would do this, first off, they would do like more of like a bicep curl, so they would pull it up in here, and there's no back in that at all. So what you gotta do is think elbow drive. So if I just elbow drive to here and stopped, I'm not really getting the full contraction on my back. So I really need to push my chest up and really get my shoulder blades back. So the only way to do that is to have that thought process of pushing my chest through this bench. So as I'm bringing my elbows back, I'm pushing through. So shoulder blades retracted, chest through that bench, and then nice and stretch. Science bros can think what they think. And I always get a kick out of them trying to come after bodybuilders or guys that have been doing it forever. It all comes down to look at the physiques. Look at the physiques that are telling you what to do. So would you go to someone that has the physique, has the muscle mass, guys that are actually telling you how to do it properly and have the backing to do it because they themselves have the muscle on their bodies, or you're gonna look at somebody that has no muscle on their body, or just slightly more looking like a, I don't know what you would call it, a muscular swimmer. Them telling you what to do. So it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, go to someone that is tried and true and basically has the backing, has coached people to get to further distances themselves. Like, even if you're looking for a coach or an influencer to help you better your physique, look at who they've trained. If they've trained people that have done fitness competitions and done bodybuilding competitions that have won overalls or titles and stuff like that, then yeah, okay, you know what? They have the backing. You should be able to trust them. Should. But if they don't, and they're just telling you what to do based off of some study somewhere in a book, I hate to tell you, it's gonna be a long road for you because you ain't gonna get the result that you're wanting. It is what it is. Just, and that is science. I'll tell you that right now. That's true. That's true as basically fucking is there air for me to breathe. If you don't have the physique to back up what you're saying, you really shouldn't be saying anything. Easy peasy. All right, so we're moving on to exercise number 4. By the way, the last exercise that we did, I didn't go over sets and reps. So try to go as heavy as you can. So you're doing rep ranges of about 8 to 10, and do 4 sets of that. So really push yourself to go heavy, but to a point where you can still control the weight. So it's still, you're still controlling the flex, controlling the descend, everything like that. Don't just pick a weight because it's heavy and just grip it and rip it. When I mean 8 to 10, I mean 8 to 10 controlled reps. So we're gonna move on to rack pulls. I'm gonna be using the plate loaded deadlift machine. So basically all I did was I adjusted the handles to right about knee level, and we're gonna be doing some racks. So big thing on rack pulls is it's the top end of a regular deadlift. So the big thing you wanna do is you wanna keep it more on the back. So that is essentially what you're trying to do. You're trying to take it away from the leg and put most of the pressure on the back. So get yourself in the position where a little wider than shoulder width apart, get yourself a good base, get yourself 9 degrees from the hips. So basically what I mean is you're bending through the hips, everything's nice and stable, back is nice and straight, and you're just basically standing up. And as you can see, I'm not using my legs. There's no real bend in my knee. So this is where you can really tack on the weight if you can handle it without bending your back. So straight up, down. So with this, you're really gonna go try to really push yourself again, as heavy as you can. Go 8 to 10 reps for 4 sets, and it's really emphasizing that because you really got to retract those shoulder blades. You got to keep that back nice and straight. And as you start progressing in weight, start really putting those plates on, it's going to get extremely hard for you to keep that back nice and basically straight and keep those shoulder blades retracted and being able to control it without slamming it down. So that is another big thing, is you're not really slamming it. You want to control that weight. So a lot of people, what you see them do is when they get in here, it's just like they're using momentum, they're using that bounce. That's really not helping you at all. So control the weight, really control the descend, and control basically the positive rep position of the rep. So nice and slow up, nice and slow down. And if you use a machine like this and you notice that one side is hitting more so like hitting down before the other one does, that means you're off with your arms. So one might be down a little bit and one might be kind of cocked up a bit. Once you get down here, retract everything. So pull those elbows in and hold, and basically keep in that position. All that is you're more confident on one side than the other side, and it's usually the weaker side that's gonna hit after your strong side, just because you're keeping that up nice and tight, and you don't want to your body doesn't want to let it go. So once you get in here, really pull those elbows in, everything nice and tight, and there. And now you should hit at the same time every time. So for hamstrings, you would go a lot lower than this. So for hamstrings, you basically do a stiff leg deadlift, but you want that stretch. So I would bring that all the way down here. So now, instead of starting at the knee, I'm starting all the way down here by the ankle. So now I'm gonna get the full stretch. So now that is hamstring. So that's a stiff leg. So that's the difference. So rack pulls stop at the knee and straight up. Stiff leg deadlifts go all the way down past the knee. So big difference between the two. So if you're thinking rack pulls, you're stopping right around kneecap area. If you're thinking stiff leg deadlifts, you should be stopping all the way mid calf, because you're really essentially going for that stretch in the hamstring, and you're really pulling yourself back up with that hamstring and ham glute insertion point. Those are the areas you're really kind of concentrating on a stiff leg. On a rack pull, it's just basically back, because you're not going down far enough to get a stretch of the hamstring. If you're getting a stretch of the hamstring and if you're only going at the kneecap level, first off, you need to start working on flexibility, because your flexibility is horrible. But if you're going at kneecap, there should be no incorporation of the hamstring whatsoever. Slight, maybe, for like 0.5 of a second to get moving, but it should be all back. Like, essentially, that is a back movement. I personally, like, when I first did rack pulls and stiff legs, I always did barbell in my career. And I found that really worked well for me. But the problem with a lot of beginners out there, unfortunately, most gyms won't have this type of apparatus. You can use dumbbells, which is the same sort of thing. You go neutral grip with that, and they kind of let them kind of rotate around. But the thing with the barbell is, essentially, is when you come down, you're grabbing it in front of you. So your shoulders are already rounded. So a lot of people, as soon as they get into that round position grip, they start doing this when they start going down. So once they get into a weight that is just too much, they have a really hard time retracting those shoulder blades and keeping that back nice and straight, which is basically for your back health. If you can't keep that back straight and can't keep those shoulder blades retracted, all the weight is going to go to your lower back, and you're going to start having lower back issues, sciatic pain, all that stuff, and that is not fun. So for a beginner, I always recommend something like this or a dumbbell, just because of the neutral kind of bias on it. But if you're an experienced lifter, yes, head her on over to the barbell rack, get yourself in there, start doing stiff legs, start doing like essential deadlifts, and you can get into rack pulls over there as well. But you need that strength in your back before you get into that, because if you don't have that strength, you're not going to be able to basically hold that weight, and you're going to start ruining your lower back. That's my opinion on that. So that is your rack pulls, like I said, 4 sets of 8 to 10. All right, so we're going to finish up the back day. What I'm going to do is basically just do a 1-arm pull down. It's nice and light. So you're going to do sets of at least 15. But you want to do sets to absolute failure. So when I say 15, you're starting to fail at 12, going to 15. If you want to increase that and go to 20, starting to fail at 15, you go to 20. So the big thing here is you've pushed yourself, you got a big pump in your back. Now we're basically going to stretch out that pump and get a little bit more blood in there to really kind of increase that blood flow, increase that little micro tears in the fascia, and try to kind of build that back up a bit more. So I've done this before, but just kind of go a quick overview. So basically you're gonna sit sideways on the seat. I'm gonna pick the handle. So you kind of keeping that shoulder down, but you're giving yourself that little bit of a twist, keeping that chest up. And then it's more of like an underhand neutral right here and ends in an underhand here. So really concentrate on that stretch and then that squeeze at the end. Notice that I'm not leaning into it this far or like that. I'm still keeping my chest up, keeping everything nice and still. Just slight turn in the shoulders as I'm coming down, but it's more so just following my elbow travel. So elbow across the body, nice and down and tight beside the body. So you're gonna do 3 sets of absolute failure. 15, 20 reps, all depending on how much strength you have left in you. But really push yourself to get as much blood in there. Really control the weight, control the stretch. Hold that stretch for a second, hold that squeeze for a second, and control each, basically, the positive and the negative of the rep. So this is really gonna increase that pump that you're gonna have from that massive row day that we just did. And hope you boys and girls enjoy that back day, and drop the comments, drop the likes. Let me know what you think. Peace.